really passionate about because at the first time that I heard about parks being created with intention for older adults, I was like, of course. I mean, why didn't we start doing this sooner? And then I had the good fortune to go on a trip to London, and I was just walking through Hyde Park and I bumped into one of these, and I was like, man, I wish more was being done here in the United States in this area. And the good news is, our guest today is making change in this area. Let me welcome Sue Paul, who is really doing some very cool stuff that we're going to dive into. But Sue, before we dive into your unique project and how you're helping people think about outdoor space, let's get to know you a little bit better. Tell us a little bit about your background and kind of what led you down this path of of innovation.
Oh, well, Steve, thank you so much for having me. It's so great to be here, and all those upcoming topics look like I'm going to be watching because I love all that stuff too. Um, so my name is Sue Paul. I have been an occupational therapist for 30, almost 35 years now. And I've spent the vast majority of that time working with older adults. I started in the nursing home environment in the 90s, basically, where it was a completely different vision than it is now. It's a completely different model. But that got me exposed early to dementia before it even had that name. It was senility or organic brain syndrome and things like that. And we weren't, as therapists, not even allowed to work with that population. So Medicare would deny a claim if you had a diagnosis of dementia then. So I didn't know anything about it, although that was most of my patients that I worked around nearby. Anyway, so fast forward, Medicare overturns that, and in around 2001, Medicare says, okay, therapists, you can work with these people because they break their hips too, and they have strokes too, and they need therapy too. And what was interesting is like therapists had no idea what to do with them because they had never been taught in school. There was no book on this. Like, how do we work with this? So that's where I committed, kind of just became my passion. Like, how do I do this? Like, how do I help people get better who can't learn through traditional methods? So anyway, I've honed my skills for a very long time. I got into home health, uh, had a few impactful encounters in home health where, once you discharge somebody from your care, you wish them the best. Good luck with everything. So I'll tell you a quick story, but I did meet a very just family broke my heart in 2012. And the daughter of this home was about my age, and she had two young school-age boys. She also had two parents with Alzheimer's disease. Each parent was in a different stage. So her father had early stage dementia, which means his memory was very poor, and he had no idea that anything was really wrong with him. He thought he was fine. And his job was to keep an eye on her mother, who had middle stage dementia. So she was prone to wandering and getting lost and confused. And anyway, so when this girl would come home from work with her two sons, she was a single mom, she'd lock the door and have no idea what she was coming home to. One or both parents could be missing. The car would be gone, the lawnmower in pieces, the dad on the roof scraping ice out of a gutter. Just she was so exhausted with the whole thing, and her sons had no quality of life because they couldn't leave. Anyway, my heart broke for her, and I said, "Is there nowhere you can go? Like, is there anything you can do as a family?" And she said, "No, we can't go to restaurants, we can't go to the mall, we can't go to the movies. Like, there's no place I can take my family that we can go. We're just stuck here." So I was like, if I had a bag of money, I would build you a place. I would make this place for you. So driving home, literally that day, I pass a park, and there's mothers or parents sitting around watching their kids play on developmentally appropriate equipment paid for with taxpayer dollars. And I'm like, why is there no thing for this, like for the largest tax-paying demographic? There's nothing in place for them like this. So that's what started me on this journey. Went to the mayor. Can we build a park? This is in Frederick, Maryland. And he's like, sure. I'm like, oh, awesome. And that was 12 years ago. So
Wow.
we're just about there, but it's been a long time. It's been a long journey.
Man,
Yeah.
what a great story. And Okay. A couple of things that so what we can use as our discussion today is what you just said is that you had this vision to create a park that served the needs of older adults, and this park is now being built 12 years after you sort of proposed it, in Frederick, Maryland.
Correct. Yep.
And let me share your website here real quick. Geez, if I can get to the right, um, whoops, the the right screen. Sorry, folks. Sometimes this even happens to me. Okay. Uh, okay. So you I imagine you created this organization, Seniorscapes, correct?
Correct. Yep. In
And
2007.
and okay, and I love it. Right here, we've got some images creating landscapes where seniors can thrive. We build accessible, senior-centric, dementia-friendly recreational spaces where older adults can thrive. And so, tell us, uh, I see some examples on the screen of design and things of that nature, but let's maybe walk through, and some partners here, AARP, Asbury, and Frederick, Maryland. Walk us through this journey about how you were able to orchestrate getting this park to be built. You talk to the mayor gives you approval.
Well, he thought it was a good idea. Wasn't
Okay.
exactly, let's go. Yeah, so I did not know. I did not know what I didn't know. So
Yeah.
I literally thought it would take 2 weeks when this thing started. It wasn't until 2017 when I realized I needed to form my own nonprofit. I needed to get distance from it because it needed to have its own organization and board, and I could apply for grants and be a legitimate cause rather than just my whimsical idea. So in 2017, I did that, and I had accumulated a few heroes and supporters early on. A lot of the Frederick senior providing community is amazing, and they were very gung ho. They still are. Um, but it was such a conceptual idea. It was so hard to show what it could do. I didn't have like money for renderings and for all these. So I'm bootstrapping every step of the way. I need this kind of survey, I need an impact study, I need whatever these early things are, and there's no promise of anything. So I'm
Mhm.
asking for dollars from people who may or may not work. It was a tricky
Yeah.
ride. And I started gaining a little bit of momentum right when COVID hit, of course,
Ah,
and which then shut everything down. So I made zero progress. But the irony, the ironic thing that comes out of that is that everybody realizes, oh my gosh, we need safe outdoor spaces so people can socialize. And I'm like, yeah, you don't need a pandemic to tell you that. Um, but that was a little bit more impetus to getting this going.
now, when I first sort of learned about this, there was a bunch of videos going around somewhere in Asia. They were building, and the term back then, and I don't know if it still holds, was adult playground. And it was outdoor exercise equipment, and the older adults in that community could use these and not be competing with young kids running around the playground. When you did you draw, had you seen best practices anywhere in the world, and were you able to draw on some of those to help you kind of uh, make this a reality?
That's a very good point because, and initially I was so dementia focused in the beginning. That's where it started with that one conversation. And I wanted just to build an accessible, safe place for people with dementia. That was the early vision. Um, but at the time, if you remember, at the time we were going to develop a pill that was going to stop Alzheimer's disease. It was going to happen, and there was going to be the breakthrough, and then Alzheimer's would be eradicated. That was what we were all waiting for. And as I it didn't take me that long to figure out, no, 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 this is a multi-pronged problem. This
Yeah.
is a a problem, you don't fix it downstream. Like it's a lifestyle thing somehow. And then that's when I kind of got on the wellness preventative aspect of not only neurodegenerative decline, but just aging. There's so much we can do to prevent chronic disease and things like Alzheimer's and live healthier lives if we pay attention to those factors that contribute to healthy aging. I had the experience of what happens if you don't. I had home health visits with people who fall and have skin breakdown and all the chronic diseases and are isolated in their homes. So I see all the negative effects. I'm like, what's the antidote to that? Like, what do we anecdote, not anecdote, to that, and what can we build? So best practices were actually drawn from the research that shows, like, I came up with 6 tenets of healthy aging, and if you can, I'm thinking, build an environment that has the opportunities to address all 6, then you've really that's the best you can do with healthy aging. Here you go. It's all in one spot. So those are things like physical activity, which needs to include cardiovascular exercise, resistance training, balance training, and mobility training. Excuse me. Emotional and mental well-being from just being in nature that reduces anxiety and depression, things like that. Cognitive health, which is all the things that physical exercise brings, but it's also brain games and stimulation and socialization and those sort of things that can be embedded in the park. The social engagement aspect, just by having shelters to gather in, green spaces to play, things like that. And then nutrition being, not an obvious thing you could offer at a park, but you could bring in farmers markets and food trucks and provide a place, a one-stop shop for a senior to access those sort of things. And by doing those 5 things, you've addressed the biggest one, the chronic disease management, of which the 4 biggest killers are heart disease, cancer, stroke, and diabetes. And all of those things are good for those conditions, right? So the best practice doesn't come from an example of this that already exists. It was just a matter of building it to address those things.
I love it. Well, so I love that your roots are in solving a problem for people with dementia, okay, and families and individuals. And it reminds me of the concept of universal design that says, let's design all of our environments so people with the most challenging mobility problems can operate independently. And then all of a sudden, we've created a better space for all of us.
Yeah.
And just like having a mobility problem, none of us have a crystal ball. Someday I may be in a wheelchair and I may need those curb cuts and that button to press that magically opens the door. But in the time being, I like the curb cuts and I can walk through the door with my hands full. Same thing goes for, I don't know if I'm going to get dementia, but man, I know my family would love it if they could bring me to a park, but I could use that park before I have
Oh,
dementia,
yeah.
and it's a value. Now, I didn't expect us to go down this rabbit hole, but but bear with me here, and I want to get back on track on hearing about this project. As you were talking, I was reminded of another out project that utilizes outdoor spaces that I have admired, and that is the Dementia Village concept that was founded in the Netherlands. And folks, if you're not familiar with this, they basically created a secure town and community for people with dementia so that folks are not confined to a floor or a small fenced in backyard. They have this whole community where they can just live their life as they've lived their entire life with dementia. So you see on the screen, this is a New York Times article that has some images of some of these dementia villages. So one of the things, whenever I bring up the concept of dementia village, everybody's like, oh, that needs to be built in the United States. And then the same argument that you probably heard it, well, real estate's expensive, it's hard to do that. But as you were talking, I was like, wait a second, we can have our homes, we can have our communities, but if every community had a intentional outdoor space, it's like going to the movie theater. It's
Mhm.
sort of like, hey, let's go to the park. And knowing that it's secure, knowing that it's a safe space, uh, you've created the approach that might be the solution while we're waiting for the dementia village to hit our shores.
Mhm.
Any thoughts on that, or
I'm a long time admirer of the Dementia Village over there. It's I've only listened to some of the I know you didn't want to go down this rabbit hole, but how it would replicate in the United States is could be very different because of our payer system and our reimbursement
yeah,
models, and there's a lot of, I think, technical challenges with that. But yeah, in this space, in this outdoor space, it just seemed like low hanging fruit. I mean,
yeah,
it's what we do, and I have to be careful with this because I mean this with the utmost respect and dignity to people living with dementia, but just having some sort of wander barrier, in which in this case is going to be a split rail fence with some shrubbery and things, just sort of natural barriers to keep people. So it's not a cage. It's not like we're not fencing anybody in, but there's only one entrance and one exit out of the space so that a caregiver can have a minute. I just need to sit here under this tree and read my book and right by this entrance, and I can watch them just go explore the area, go do
and
some stuff. And
that's
that's
the
all it was.
environment
That's
that
all it
we
was. Yeah,
create for our children.
exactly.
It's the environment we create for our pets,
Mhm.
and again, I'm trying to be sensitive too. We don't want to compare a human to a pet, but here's so when I heard the founder of the Dementia Village speak, he said, you know, I was at a conference. He goes, if I lock the doors to this conference room and you had to stay in this confined space, there's a lot of you that would be starting, even though you got food, even though you got companionship, you would be camping out by the doors. You would be doing anything you can to get out of the space. And he said, in the Dementia Village, it's a rainy day. And a resident of this community wants to go on a walk in the rain. They can go on a walk in the rain. They can put their raincoat on and go out, and they can walk and enjoy nature and the way that we all have done our
Mhm.
entire life. He said, and so, man, I didn't think we were going to go down this path uh, with intentional outdoor spaces. I was thinking it's more, we're going to talk about walking, exercise, and things of that nature.
Yeah.
But I really like, which is still available, but hey, let's create a park that somebody with dementia can walk and exercise
Mhm.
safely. And then it's
And
a
the thing
great
is,
place
and
for us.
Steve, if you don't have like, what if you've been going to the park for 10 years? You start when you're 75. It's very familiar to you by the time you're 85 and you have some symptoms of Alzheimer's, and it's a familiar space now. And
Yeah.
it's safe and all the things, but it's not even like you still get that dignity of being able to explore your environment without any, hindrances like they
And
do in.
again, an analogy to our pets, but I often find that if you can compare something to something that people understand and that's acceptable, we put our pets on a leash, because they can't run free and this, that, and the other. But for any pet owners there who've gone to one of these dog parks where your dog can run around and they just look so much happier. And it's the way that a dog should live, not on a leash, not with barriers, but in a more open and free environment. And
Mhm.
holy
Right?
cow,
Yeah.
this
And by
super
the way, we
cool.
build dog parks right and left.
Yeah,
Like
no, it's easy to get
dog
those
park in every
approved,
neighborhood.
but yeah, so okay, this is sorry about the rabbit holes, folks. I hope you found that beneficial, but I certainly did. But okay, so you're cobbling together, you created this nonprofit, you're cobbling together the funding and like I'm assuming because this is being built that wow, there's a need here in everything. Yeah, and Laura, yeah, I'm gonna shut up. I promise. I'm gonna let Sue talk. I get excited.
Oh, me too. I can steal the floor easily. So I guess the serendipitous route that's happened, and I think it's divine intervention. I'm so grateful for it. But I got a new job during COVID during this time. I'd lost a parent. I had some life stuff, and then I got this job with Asbury Communities, which is a senior living provider. And I was their director of wellness, and then I got to start their brain health program. And I was just off to the races doing all the things I love for the residents of Asbury. Asbury has a foundation called the Asbury Foundation who kind of adopted Seniorscapes as a sub-grantee. And that allowed them to, kind of help me apply for grants, fundraise on my behalf. It just gave me some bandwidth. I've just been doing this by myself for so long and not even very good at it. And I had suddenly I have a team behind me. And JD Schumann, who's the president of Asbury Foundation, was so supportive. So Asbury put in some seed money, helped me do some grant writing. So then serendipitously again, this CBDG grant became available, and we applied for it. And that's, if you've never done that, that's about 500 hoops that you have to jump through to get that done. But so here we are. We have all our funding. The project's out for bid. We've actually had to scope it back a little bit because inflation. Hello, seems like prices go up constantly. So that's been a little frustrating getting the numbers right. But either way, it's moving forward. We have a commitment from the city of Frederick in the form of an MOU. We've had a grant from the Delaplane Foundation, AARP community grant we just got for a piece of equipment. So we've had a lot of private donors and things like that. But what got us there was a CBD grant coming in at the end. So very grateful for that.
Okay, and then this gets approved, and then Melinda says, what is an MIU?
An MOU, I'm sorry, it's a memorandum of understanding. And that was something
a memorandum of understanding.
It was an agreement I had with the city of Frederick 5 years ago to get this done, and they committed some money to it.
You check all these boxes, and when do you expect this park to open?
Let's say May of 2025.
May of next year.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what we're hoping for. It keeps getting pushed back because that's how it goes. But yeah, it's it's definitely happening.
And now describe to us what's going to be in this park, and I'm on the Seniorscapes website. Is there are there any of the images here that might represent the Frederick Park?
I don't think there's a full overview of it on the website there. Kind of hard to see it there. I'm sorry. So basically, as you enter the park, there'll be, it's like I said, there's a fence around it. What's important to know is how it was designed around the needs for seniors. So it's right next to the parking lot. So you do not have to walk far to get to there. The first seat is within 20 feet of the drop-off zone. So you get to sit down right away. There's a bathroom and there's a water fountain. Two basic necessities right on the spot. There's two shade structures, both with gathering, seating there for parties, for whatever. There's a putting green. There's a walking path that has several different options to explore as you're on the walking path. One of the signature features, which I think is really fun, is there's a blue river that runs through the middle of the space. The river's fake. It's just a painted river, right? The idea is context. It's just, here's a challenge for you. How do you get over the river? So it's flush. You can walk across it. That's one option. There's also stairs and a ramp. So you can practice your mobility getting over the stream if you want to, and take that route. There's a balance beam with rails next to it, so you can practice just walking across the stream on a balance beam. And that's what we call a tandem gait pattern. So you're practicing a different kind of walk. There's stepping stones, also a different sort of movement pattern with rails. You can practice crossing it that way. So it's just one way to kind of shake it up and give you those chances to practice mobility that's not in a busy city corner. Like you actually get to practice in a kind of contrived setting. So you'll also see a whole exercise equipment area. It's all low impact resistance training kind of things, like a leg press and a lat pull down and things like that. There's cardio equipment, like I think there's an arm bike, a recumbent bike, or an elliptical. There's balance equipment. So we have like you can step up onto a little, it's called a step up. You step up onto a little platform and back down. There's parallel bars. There's like I said, the balance beam, you can practice balance on that. Let's see what else. There is surface challenges. So as you're walking around the walking path, and I think there's pictures of this, Steve, on the website. It's different surfaces you can practice walking across. So maybe it's turf or little kind of rocky stones or logs you have to step over. It's just kind of, again, practicing that mobility because not everywhere you go is flat and perfect. You have to
Yeah.
navigate some things.
No, you can see like here where
Mhm.
if folks can see on the balance image, um, I like this. It's got sort of like a cobblestone path
Mhm.
that he's walking on, but you've got the railings there so that you can navigate that safely.
Yeah, exactly. There'll be some embedded brain game sort of things that we can do, like, little signs with your remember something or scan the environment with your using your visual scanning, visual tracking, maybe like a scavenger hunt sort of thing. There's a music station for that sensory input and play some percussion things. Yeah, so that it's all flat. The whole surface is less than 2% grade. I think that's about it that I can think
Well,
of.
it sounds to me like I'm reminded of and Laura, hopefully she had a question about the exercise equipment. I liked how you went through all that. The It reminds me in my community of Reston, Virginia, we had some land that the town said, "Oh, you could do one of these adult playgrounds here." But the when I looked at it, it was a gravel parking lot. It didn't have adequate, like the first two things that you checked is a good walkable parking lot and restrooms that are easy accessible. These are important, not just for older adults, for all of us. It's very annoying when you go to a park and it doesn't have that.
Yeah, yeah. And when I did my park tour, like let's go find a spot for the park, I went to 30 parks in
Hmm.
Frederick. And it's like, oh yeah, you can have the space beyond the soccer field. Like, that's a beautiful space back there. I'm like, we're not walking that. I'm not gonna walk that far. Like anyway, it was like, or the floodplain sort of non-developable kind of spot between some buildings. I'm like, no, I need some prime real estate here. We need to be on the parking lot near some water
Well,
and some electrical.
one thing that I liked is you were walking through what's in the park and talking about it. You are an occupational therapist, and it's like these are fun things that can make us live functionally better no matter what our age. Practicing balance, practicing crossing a creek. Um, so having the occupational design, I think, is really key. And uh, I'm going to share another thing that, again, I didn't expect to go down this rabbit hole, but I want to make sure that folks know about this because I could see a cool opportunity here. Is a few years ago, there was this concept of parkour for older adults that came about. And you all know parkour as being these high flying, stuntmen, but what they discovered is that there's a lot of people that don't want to go to a gym to exercise, and there are parkour in essence is exercising outside in a non-traditional manner. And I could see where your park would be this amazing place for parkour for older adults, and that
Hmm.
sounds a lot cooler than chair
Yeah.
exercise or whatever.
Yeah. It's funny you brought up parkour. Do you remember what a Vita course is? It was like a popular 80s. It still exists, but it's basically that kind of park scenario where you run from station to station and you do push-ups at this one, and then you run quarter mile and you're doing pull-ups at this one, and has signage and equipment, like very spread out. But that was developed also in in the Netherlands, I think.
Oh, I
Um,
love it. Okay,
yeah, and based on trees and branches, and it was that sort of thing, you know.
couple of really good questions that are coming in here. Jeannie says, can individuals use the park on their own or do they need a companion?
It's a public park. So with that comes some risk, which is just like your child on the swing set at the park. I mean, it's open to anybody. It's even, I mean, it's open to children. I know this whole intergenerational conversation that I get into a lot. You know, we want you to play with your grandkids at the park where it's safe for you, you know, but it's not designed for the kid. It's designed for the older adult. The kid playground is right next door. You can go, the kids can go play there. Um, so I'm sorry, I forgot the original question, but that
That you don't need a companion.
you don't need a companion.
All of
It's
us can use this, but
anybody can use it. It's a public park. Mhm.
but I love your inspiration is that if we design a park where companions can get some, where caregivers and their loved ones can get some respite outside,
Mhm.
in a safe environment, what a wonderful
Oh
uh,
yeah.
opportunity that is. I could see like a caregiver support group being run at the table or
Yeah.
something like that. You know, we're meeting up once a week and bring your loved one with dementia. Okay, another great question from Melinda is as a musical therapist, I appreciate musical instruments. And this is a movement. I've been to a bunch of children's parks that had outdoor drums and xylophones and things like
Mhm.
that. In the park in Frederick, is that something
Mhm.
that you're adding?
Yeah, yeah, it's on the plans. It's one of the trickier items to finance, but yes, we're definitely having music, and it's funny, you have to be careful of neighbors and sound ordinances and things like that because there'll be the kids in the middle of the night who are out there banging on the marimba. but but yeah, we're definitely building it. You know, those sensory experiences are very important for everybody, and they're so much fun, and music's so enjoyable by everybody, you know.
Well, and you know, the thing that I like about that is once you get the park opened and everything, that could be a great targeted fundraising project
Mhm.
that I could see folks like Melinda supporting. It's like, hey, folks, you know, let's get the drums or the xylophone or
Yeah,
what have you.
it's definitely there's a whole music garden feature that's
Oh,
planned out.
Music Garden, I love it.
Yeah.
Um, Laura says, I'm currently paying $200 a week for these opportunities for this $200 a week for these opportunities for an 86-year-old. And I'm assuming, Laura, that either a gym or a physical therapy type service. Um, but
Yeah.
I can see that like we're using some creativity and I saw that in when they started talking about uh the the older adult playgrounds, they call them pensioner playgrounds in Europe, and some of the people were saying I'm on a fixed income, I can't afford a gym, but I can come here and exercise. um let's see. Linda says, I love the parkour silver course. I took it as a trainer. So practical and it gets people outdoors in the sunlight. Your Seniorscapes is a great incentive and excited for next May. Um, uh, oh, Laura says, yes, how to reassign the dollars. And, you know, Laura, I don't know if you're in Frederick, but what I can envision is a whole cottage industry popping up around this park in Frederick in terms of the senior living communities and the memory care communities are bringing their residents there to enjoy larger and different outdoor spaces. Personal trainers are out there, you know, working with older adults on exercise that could be more affordable than the $200 gym membership or what have you. Physical therapist, occupational therapist, what a great place to go in real life with your clients, you know?
Yeah, we have to be careful. That's a Medicare
Oh,
no
sorry.
no at the moment, but we'll
Okay.
see. I can go lobby for that.
Yeah. Um, yeah, Jeannie said music would be very soothing to all. Yeah, and as Sue has discovered, you probably in this project you discovered a whole crop of not in my backyard people that you never knew existed. You know, when you're
Only one. I've only had one. It's amazing. I know.
Wow.
I've had some negative comments, mostly just from misunderstanding. Just the message was wrong. No, I'm not building a cage to put people in. That's not what we're doing here. Like, so it's just a matter of correcting the messaging. But yeah, there was only one person, and we brought him around.
Now, Laura, she mentions that she's in Tenleytown in DC near American University. And Laura, one of my master plans in having Sue on this discussion is to inspire other folks to follow in her footsteps, to collaborate with her, to just think differently about spaces that are out there. And so my dream would be that somebody who's listening to this is sort of like, I can do what Sue did. And Sue, is it okay if people call you to?
Absolutely, sure.
Okay,
I'm actually writing the guidebook on this, so it can be
I love it. So
quite a
I'm
foreign
gonna,
guide.
don't worry, at the recording, I'm gonna have the Seniorscapes website and ways to get in touch. But I hope this inspires folks that aren't in the Frederick neighborhood and are going to be able to take advantage of this. Um, Melinda says, I can envision signage from all types of senior services to fund this partially. Yeah, I mean,
Hmm.
great idea. And I mean, fortunately, Sue, you've got the funding, but you could see like hosting
Yeah.
events at the park, signs, lots of different ideas.
Yeah, we have a lot. I mean, like I said, I have a whole team of fundraising experts in my corner now, so it's really there's plenty of ideas to go around. But what it's just bandwidth. But we'll get there. I promise you, all of this park was going to be done. It's
Man, this is so cool. Um, and um, and I thought I knew all about this park. I read a few articles, but this interview has been amazing. Sue, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you'd like to bring up?
I think we haven't talked about.
Yeah. Um, I just, anything that we haven't touched on in either creating a park like this or the future of outdoor spaces.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I'm just excited to see. I mean, so all of the baby boomers will be 65 by 2030, and the difference between the aging population and the generation replacing them is crazy. That um, what do they call that? The dependency ratio or something. Anyway, so it's the time is now, and it's a good thing that baby boomers in general are very much interested in their health. They're a little bit they're getting tech savvy. They like their wearables and their goal directed. As a generation, they're pretty excited about that. The thing is, we got to bring the opportunity. We got to build it in the infrastructure. Cities got to be walkable. Um, Things should be connected and not hard to get to. And like even the technology thing should be easy and hard and not hard to get to. But if we can build like even this park in Frederick as a hub, as a destination for, like I said, it's a one-stop shop for seniors. I've compiled the 6 tenets of healthy aging and matched the solution in one spot, right? It's something. It's not enough, but it's on the microcosm level. It's something to address healthy aging. So what else can we do? Can we connect it, down the street to the hospital in a greenway? They can walk or ride their bike to the hospital or to, get into the other trail system that goes into the woods, and off to other adventures, or even connecting them to the neighborhoods where they live or the senior living communities in the area, like, and just get that connectivity, so that the whole community is pro aging and embracing this, like just it's just common sense. We have to not have our silos, but have everything connected. So I'm
um,
pretty excited about that, all that potential.
no, this really, you can really see where this can be a much more positive, less age segregated hub that brings together people of all ages and abilities and in a meaningful way. The Martha asks, what about the environmental impacts? Like, so when you were doing this, I mean, the did you have to go through studies
So
or?
many. So many environments. So we're not building any, everything's on top of the surface and it's minimal dirt we're moving around. It's in a floodplain. Um, because we're using federal funds, we had to actually get approval from the tribal lands, the tribal councils. So I had to contact Delaware Nation and get them to see what they wanted to do. They wanted an archaeological study to make sure there's no artifacts. And so it's been a lot of hoops. So they
Wow.
were satisfied with the results of that, but the environmental impact is minimal. It is in a floodplain, but nothing. I think it's most of the stuff that the impervious surfaces are all to you can't get a permit without meeting those standards anyway. So
No, we want this to be an inspiration and I want this to be like a blank canvas, folks. So, it may be that you listen to some things and there's something that you could borrow. It's like, wow, if this park in my community just had a fence around it, people with dementia could spend time here. What Sue is doing is the this best practice that we can all follow and have examples. Are you okay sharing the approximate dollar value from start to finish that a project in Frederick, Maryland on your scale is taking?
I'll have to get back to you on that, Steve. It's been so it has like nobody involved in this project has considered this like traditional project because it's just little me comes out of nowhere to make this happen versus an effort that's been initiated by the city, where they
Yeah.
have their engineers and their people, and so I've been bootstrapping it nickel by nickel for a long time, and for me to put all that together would take a minute.
Okay.
Uh, but I can tell you, like the final budget of the project is about 520 to 550,000. That's what we're trying to. When I started, it was about 250, I think, but
Sounds
inflation,
like about
supply
every
chain,
project that I've
yeah,
heard of. Yeah.
everything's over budget. So we're
Yeah.
just trying to stay in that range, and it gets tricky because stuff gets expensive. And so anyway, we're gonna get there though.
Um, Susan, great question here. Are you aware of projects that repurpose shopping malls? Not currently natural, but there's these spaces.
Oh, I'm a fan of all of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
have the, I mean, I know we're putting you on the spot here, but I like Susan's question about the malls. Did you, when you're out there sort of looking at different best practices, did you stumble into anything in that space that sort of struck your fancy?
When I started this idea, that wasn't real. Like the malls really weren't failing at the
Yeah,
pace they are now, right? So, but it still seemed like, oh, there should be a place where the doctor's office and the food court and the walking club, like that just made sense to me. So yeah, that was an obvious thing. But I was already down the path of the
got it.
outdoor space,
Yeah,
when that became more popular.
yeah, it drives me crazy that the existing malls are not reaching out and creating and utilizing their space and bringing in older adults and
Mhm. They
the
might be. I mean, I'm not
well,
up
they're
to.
not. I know there's some that are out
Mhm.
there, but there's some that are. It's been surprising when people reached out to them to try to create a program, how resistant they are.
Mhm.
Um, in Annapolis, it happens to be near the medical center. Oh, the mall. Yeah, that mall in Annapolis. Yeah, it would be great. And like I said, folks, I mean, you hear what Sue's going through. This is not easy, but there's ways that we can use her as inspiration. And it may just be simply the next time you're at the Annapolis Mall, it's like, hey, uh, have you ever thought about doing something with older adults? It might exist already, but maybe it's linking up with the hospital,
Mhm.
or a sponsor of a
Hopefully
program.
I'll be able to offer the framework, that matches the research, the research to the why we're doing this, why this makes
Yep,
sense, and that it's not a harebrained idea and it is common sense, but it's also in the research. So I'll
that's
have
great.
that piece done for everybody. That's a big piece of it though, like
This is
proving
this
it,
is so exciting. And well, Sue, we've had some great questions today. You've really provided us with an overview. You are just, I'm so glad that you made these wacky career decisions at the time. And it's really going to I think, going to lead to a better world for all of us. And what I'm thinking, folks, is that maybe we do a positive aging field trip, uh,
Ooh,
whether it be, we all just carpool up and check this out, or I'll set up some equipment and we'll do a discussion with Sue when the park is open. Wouldn't that be kind of
that would be
cool?
amazing. That would
Yeah.
be great.
All
Yeah.
right. Field trip, great idea. All right. Um,
Yay.
okay. Well, thanks so much, y'all, and have a great day. And again, thank you so much, Sue. I'll get this recording up